to participate as we move forward and as we grow and as we build in different elements specific to them at a much, much lower price point. Like, the Genesis membership is 3 ETH or around 3 ETH. It touched 5. That's really expensive. Like, that's a lot of money. Okay, like, it's a lot. The passes sit at like 0.2, 0.3. Now, if someone knew that we were having an event coming up in New York, which we will be, and we're going to have a space for people to hang around, a retail space for 4 or 5 days, where they can come and they can hang out and sort of work with us and listen and learn and purchase merchandise and whatever it may be. You might want to really attend that because you want to be involved, you want to learn, you want to get your hands dirty, you want to meet new people. This is a community you want to get involved with. And what we're doing is we're allowing people to go there and to experience that for, an absolute fraction of the price, 1/10, 1/11 of the price, and that is a way for us to open up the community to other people in a more affordable way, especially some younger people as well. Like, if you're 17, 18, you want to learn. If you're 17, 18 in this space and you're trying to learn, you're going to seriously make it. Like, that's early.
Yeah, very, very early.
Like, you're doing a fantastic job. But these people don't have 3 ETH or 3.5 ETH to come to an event. The other aspect is that if you want to hold a really big event, if there's a 10,000 unit collection and you have 5,000 unique owners or 4,000 unique owners, how are you going to fill up 1,000 people event space in New York? I can tell you a fourth of the people aren't going to come to the event. It's not going to happen. So again, it allows it to open up to more people. And that's the same explanation for the Metaverse Pass, for the virtual side of things, as we develop that out. It'll be a place and a mechanism for people to join and experience the PAE ecosystem without having to pay, 10 times the price. And that's something that we really want to focus on. And then the second aspect to the other collections is the game theory. So we were always going to have sets and different sets and, combinations to do different things, and like an ecosystem, like almost like a game when you're doing a campaign, you need to collect things to do things and so on and so forth. We always wanted to have that in there. And then that, by nature of supply and demand, and when you need things and don't need things, it gives other people that are a bit more passive opportunities to, cash out or capitalize or make decisions based on what's happening, which is good for them. So it just adds another sort of dynamic interest or level of interest into the collection. We got some interesting feedback about having 4 collections. There was one YouTuber who was saying how sus he was about sort of this before it launched, obviously. And everyone's absolutely entitled to their opinion. I'll never discourage that. But he was saying, I doubt this ever sells out. Doubt this goes anywhere. And I doubt these get any return. And, we were sort of playing a bit of a mind game with everyone by putting component number 1 at 0.045, which was the cheapest. And, that is funny because it took 3 days to sell out, right? And now it's sitting at 0.6, 0.7, whatever it is, or 0.8, 0.9, depending. So I think for collections, it was different. First of all, a lot of people think or thought at the time that it wasn't really going to work, and it's because they didn't quite understand the use case of it at that point in time. And I wasn't going to go tell them because it's, I don't want to spoil the movie. I don't want to spoil the show. I don't want to say, hey, in future, you're going to need one of those, and you're going to need to go do this, and then collect one of those, and then you're going to get this. Like, obviously not going to say that. Mm-hmm. So we had in our minds exactly what was going to happen. And we just had to trust that, eventually it will come good. And as we release more information, more interest and intrigue will build up. So, it's an ecosystem, and it's something that's going to thrive over time. And yes, it is a bit complicated, but that's just how life is. Like, things are complicated. If you want to participate, it's complicated. And there's a lot of people that message me, like, if you celebrities like NBA players and stuff like that, and they're like, "Oh, could you give me the download of what's happening?" I'm like, "Look, listen. Read the updates, you'll know what's happening. Like that's what the updates are for. Read them, you'll understand what's happening. But then just go along for the ride. You know, you don't have to stress. Like if you're busy doing things, you're busy, playing NBA, whatever, just go do that. That's okay. Like just enjoy it when you can. And that's what it's here for.
Yeah, it's super, super interesting. I can't really say that I'm busy playing NBA, but I know that there's so much game theory to Psychedelics Anonymous, and it's like you do a very, very good job at, giving hints, but it just like kind of throws interest, but you don't give the answer. You don't spoil a movie, and I think that's super, super cool. It keeps everyone engaged. But yeah, I would love to touch on like how you approached when you began marketing Psychedelics Anonymous, because you started out on Twitter, and where the meta at the time was, projects start their Discords first, then they build that, whereas you went the complete opposite way and started on Twitter first and then released your Discord. So I would love to touch upon that and like what your thought process for that was.
It's funny because there's a lot of decisions that people make over time, and a lot of the time, some things just fall into place, and a lot of people won't tell you that. I'm always pretty honest with sort of what happened and how things transpired and my thinking around it. So I'd love to answer this properly. First of all, first and foremost, I've never used Discord in my life. All right. I'm not a Discord person. I'm just not. I never have been. I know that it was something necessary for NFTs, and I got involved with Discord first when the Bored Ape Yacht Club, when I bought my first ape, right? And I messaged Gordon, one of the founders of the Bored Ape Yacht Club, in June, and I sent him a message, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I can't see the general chat. Like, I'm not sure what's going on. Like, what am I doing wrong? And he messaged me, and he's like, oh, you didn't do the capture bot and this and that and the other. I'm like, and he's like, oh, I just manually verified you. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. So like, the first instance is me and Discord aren't super familiar. That's the first thing. The second thing is Discord's great, but it's closed, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to think about the psychology of Discord. You have to actively go and join a server. Everyone here has joined this server, or they've joined the PA server and they've learned about the SVS server. Like you have to join. There's actions for joining. And you think about this from a psychological perspective when you're doing marketing campaigns, right? On the easiest or most simple basis, when you want to generate leads or generate sales, you want to take away a lot of the barriers to sale. Same with, take away barriers to entry of some products or services. The barriers to sale for NFTs when it comes to Discord, there's a lot. Okay, you got to find the Discord, you got to click the link, you got to download Discord if you don't have it already. You got to join, do the capture bot, verify. These are barriers to sale. And once these people get in here, and sometimes they have technical issues, like when we launched our Discord, first of all, it was a shit show. But second of all, the capture bot died because there's so many people trying to do it. And like there was technical issues. And we had people, I'm pretty sure we have people needing to verify their mobile number on their Discord account. And, some people couldn't verify their mobile number. And like, there's always going to be a few hiccups, right? Now, the reason why social media works, especially Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, maybe bar Facebook at this stage, TikTok. Let's use TikTok as an example. Probably one of the fastest growing social media platforms on the planet. Why is that? First of all, it's a bit of a game you scroll. It's got that addictive behavior thing. But secondly, it's easy to consume. Easy to consume. You download TikTok, you open TikTok up, in 2 minutes, you are scrolling through TikTok. They generate you a user ID, they create your account. Like it's so easy to do. That's the opposite with Discord. So applying that logic to Twitter, obviously, when you're marketing on Discord, you're marketing to people who are in your server. Okay. And most of the time, those people are already sold, they're already in here, they're already interested. But on Twitter, you have a world of millions and millions of people that could potentially be interested in your project. They could potentially just be interested in NFTs. Potentially they don't know what NFTs are, but somehow they learn about it. Okay. So Twitter for me was the obvious answer for our marketing because it opened up a wider pool of network, which allowed us to get far more reach much quicker. And then we could then funnel that into Discord. Like Discord was always going to be created. We could funnel people in there with no issues like we did. And I definitely didn't want to have the sort of Discord grinding stuff, like the levels and the invites. You know, Hate Beast, as an example, they got to a ridiculous number of Discord members. It was crazy. It was like 250,000, which is nuts. And yes, they were purging bots every day. Yeah. But there's still people in there that are just using bots to talk. You know, you can download a bot on your computer in 5 minutes and get it to say 10 different variations of a sentence every couple of minutes so you can level up and invite people. You know, like it's easy to game. And that to me destroys the sort of authenticity of the server. You know, like our server might not always be super, super quick. There might not be a million conversations happening. But we know no one else is. People are there to have conversations. That's it. So, using that logic, go back to Twitter. Now, I built, I think, 4,000. I got up to about 4,500 followers on Twitter before we started marketing, and I knew that Twitter was going to be our space because we had access to far more people, and it's got this viral element of, you know, things get retweets, they get likes, they get comments, it gets seen by more people and just spreads and spreads and spreads and spreads like wildfire. You can't do that in Discord. So I saw and I watched over months and months when I was just sort of observing other collections do whitelists, right? You can allow this whitelist, whatever. Whitelist is the more general term that everyone knows. You know, your personal thoughts aside. So I saw this sort of happening, and it was mitigating gas wars. And I got involved in a few gas wars when I was trying to mint things and I was trying to trade. I also had to wake up at 3, 4 a.m. to mint things. You know, Atom Bomb Squad. I was house sitting actually at my friend's daughter, and I was staying at their house, and I was downstairs, and I was trying to wake up at 3 in the morning to mint Atom Bomb Squad, and I woke up, and there was 10 minutes before the mint started, and I dozed off back to sleep, and I woke up 5 minutes later, and they were sold out. And I was like, fuck, you know, like, yeah, it's hard. And then, so what I did is I FOMO'd in on secondary for like 0.3. so, you know, like these things happen. You know, we're all human. So then I started taking real notice of people doing whitelists, and I think the first one that I really took notice of was One Force, and they did that VIP system, whatever it was called, where you had to grind on Discord, and then they gave you a PFP, and then you're part of the unknown or whatever it was, some sort of catchphrase. And they could mint early. And then I saw that happen. It was successful, and this was all moving forward. And then realistically, it just came to my mind of, okay, people don't like gas wars, first of all. Second of all, you have an opportunity to get people in, and they don't have to obviously pay anything more than the cost of the NFT. So that's good. That's a cheaper cost of entry. It makes people happier. And third of all, you know, people seem to really want to be involved on a whitelist level because they know that they've got a guaranteed win. The other aspect of it, which is really reverse psychology, which is funny, and I talked about this on the NFT Catcher Pod, you are essentially marketing a product or a mechanism to a product, a whitelist, and people are fighting to be on the whitelist for the opportunity to buy your NFT. So you're marketing the opportunity to be involved. And then there's this sort of switch in psychology where people don't want to miss out. Okay, FOMO. FOMO's a hell of a drug. And so if you really flick the switch on the FOMO thing and sort of push this whitelist methodology, then people really want to get involved. And then once they get that spot, they feel exclusive, they feel, secure, and then their chances of transacting or minting is like 99%, right? Especially because they can see other people wanting to get it, and then they know that they have an out point if they want to. They could get in, buy it, and sell it. And they've made an easy win. So having observed all of that, as well as the fact that if you have an extensive whitelist, you have high unique ownership, which is really important. People really stressed unique ownership, and they used it as a quantitative metric to determine the success of a collection thus forward. When I was in the Bored Ape Yacht Club, they would always talk about unique ownership. Oh, unique ownership's going here, unique ownership's going here. And that made people feel quite secure, because we all know that if someone controls the majority of supply, simple supply and demand economics, someone dumps supply, price is going to absolutely hit the floor, because it's very hard to eat through that. So unique ownership was, by virtue, something that was really successful through doing a whitelist. So then I had chats to the team, and to be honest, like, I had discussions with the team, but as this was my aspect and this was my direction, we all have very, very set out roles. I just made the call, and I was like, we're going to whitelist as many people as we possibly can. Like, that's the approach. Like, maybe we'll keep 10% for public, maybe. And I guess that really came down to, and throughout the whitelisting process, there was a decision that I was making, which was, how many mints do we give these people? If they work really hard to get a whitelist spot, how many mints do we give them? Do we give them 2? Do we give them 1? Do we give them the opportunity but not the guaranteed chance to mint? And for me, that was an obvious no-no. These people are spending heaps of time trying to get this spot. They have to have a guaranteed spot. They have to. And when we started picking up pace and we got to, 2,000 whitelist addresses or 3,000 whitelist addresses, in my mind I was thinking, I was actually planning on giving these people 2 mints. But this is working. We need to keep doing this. This is going to benefit the collection. So I made the call, and I was like, all right, we're going to put it down to 1. Everyone gets 1 mint. They get to mint 1 full set if they wanted to. And that means that our quota for whitelist spots obviously went up, doubled. And that means we could push harder on the whitelisting aspect. So when that campaign began, which was in November, maybe really late October. I think it was November. The first tweet I put out, and no one had done this, and it was just accumulation of thought. Like, this isn't, I'm not saying I came up with whitelisting. I did not. I saw it being used. I just used it in a different way. And then I posted that tweet, and I'll never forget that tweet. And I'd actually like to go find that tweet somehow. But I said along the lines of, anyone who interacts with my future tweets, comment is nice, helpful to others, whatever, they'll be considered for a whitelist spot on the project that I'm working on. And then that tweet went really, really well. Like, it went super well.
Now you see that all the time with a lot of current projects.
Yeah. You see it a lot, because it works, right? Like, it works, and there's nothing wrong with that. Using strategies that work is, you'd be ignorant not to. You'd be totally ignorant not to. And I've used heaps of strategies. I remember, there was a friend of mine, a client of mine, who was a real estate agent, and we had a competitor that was running VPA advertising, vendor paid advertising for real estate campaigns, and they started using this system, and it was working. And one of my real estate friends showed me all of it, showed me all the stuff, right, that they were doing, and I thought, oh shit, that's good. So then I went back to the team, and we replicated the entire thing, and that turned into a huge part of our business. It's just life. So we tweeted that. And then obviously that went really well. But to be perfectly frank with you, the reason why that tweet came out at that time was because a tweet of mine beforehand went really well. it was a series of events. I think there was 3 tweets of mine that went really well. The first one went well, and then I messaged, and I've said this, there was like a couple hundred people that retweeted it, and I messaged every single one of those people that retweeted it, and I said, and I typed it out with my thumbs, and I said, hey, look, thanks so much for retweeting. I appreciate the support. If there's anything I can do to help you, please let me know. Right, that's what I sent to like 400 people, framed differently. And a lot of those people didn't reply. Some did, some loved it, whatever. And there was another tweet after that went well, and I started my whole Twitter account started picking up a little bit of pace. And then I was like, oh, I have to go now. Like, now is the time. Like, if we're gonna do it, it's gonna be now. I tweeted that out, and then we started. And for like the last, I think 3 or 4 days after I tweeted that first tweet, I just didn't sleep. I didn't sleep because we had to capitalize on the momentum. So I just did not sleep for 3 or 4 days because I knew that once that flywheel started, it couldn't stop. We were going to lose momentum. I said in a different thing, when you're sleeping, you're losing momentum, which is then how the whitelist games started, and they helped them with the momentum and sort of working overnight and things like that. And that's really how that sort of marketing campaign began, to be perfectly frank.
Yeah, for sure. When I first found your Twitter account, it was at like 10K followers, and then the next time I checked, it was like at 100K. Like your momentum going into Psychedelics Anonymous, like it was like amazing to see how fast you grew. And you guys definitely did change the game as well. Like now we see a lot more Twitter interaction. Like I don't know, before that, if you remember, it was a whole bunch of like, hey, join our Discord, 5 invites, get whitelist. Like that was the whitelist meta
Yeah,
back then,
yeah, yeah,
which was horrible. Like you got like a lot of bots in your Discord, and then now you see like a lot more Twitter interaction. These accounts like making their brand before they even like start their Discord, right? So it gets like a lot more eyes on the project, which really helps it out.
yeah. Because like when there's momentum with public interest, it obviously helps. So if you've got a big Twitter following and you're cranking really hard, and then suddenly you put out the Discord link and all these people cram into it, it's like FOMO. Like everyone's like, I want in. Like it's this viral momentum that goes forward, and that's really the way to do it. And that's why I decided to do it. And honestly, there was a lot of people that thought otherwise, and a lot of people that were giving a lot of thoughts around how it was sort of happening. And everyone does. People, when things are a bit different, people aren't super comfortable, which is really ironic considering we're in an evolving technology space. You'd think that people are quite comfortable with change, but they're not because we're all humans.
Yeah.
But these things happen. There's a shift, which is good. And now, now it's crowded. When I started my first business, we were doing LinkedIn automation, right? And we were doing it for clients and generating leads, and it worked really well for a year and a half to 2 years. And then everyone started doing it. It didn't work as well. So at some stage over the next 3 to 6 months, there will be a new thing, a new technique, a new way of doing it, and there will be a new wave of how to do things properly. There will always be another technique. The psychology is the same. Someone just needs to figure it out.
Yeah, no, I remember listening to the NFT Catcher podcast that you were since this technique was so new, like I remember you were talking about like a really big influencer who was like DMing you or threw shade at you for this, and like right, yeah,
Through a lot of
yeah,
shade at me, and then I
yeah,
obviously messaged them, being a small
yeah.
person, so I'm like, hey, like, I'm really sorry, like like it's just sort of, I'm promising, like it's not bots or anything, like this is just real and legit, and they were like, oh, okay, all right. Like
Yeah,
like
I thought that was funny. Yeah,
yeah, it is.
I'm not gonna ask who it
Yeah.
is, but
Yeah. The
Yeah,
one thing I also wanted to get into, like as we know, the NFT cycle definitely goes in like from bear to bull, bear to bull. Like, and right now we're not seeing that much OpenSea volume. So a lot of teams like start to panic when they see that, right? They feel like they have to push out announcements, they have to do marketing, and then obviously like their discords are asking them like what's happening, why is floor price low? So what are your thoughts like during a bear market? Do you think it's best for teams to continue building, or like do you think they should up their marketing during then? Because a lot of people think like during bear markets you just pay people to shill your project and your floor price will automatically go up, which I totally disagree with. I feel like during bear market is the best time to put your head down and build, and then next bull market hopefully you get traction, and then I feel like that's the way to do it. So I was just wondering what are your thoughts on that?
It's a great question. And I think anyone paying attention to my Twitter this morning specifically would have sort of seen some thoughts around that as it was 4 a.m. Look, the best thing to build, and this is a very long discussion topic, and I'm really happy for everyone here who's here and listening, because I feel like this might help a few people and sort of ease their minds. The world of speculative trading is volatile by nature. Okay. Yesterday, I was with Nick, who's obviously on our team, and he was a fund manager, stockbroker for years and years and years and years, and had a bunch of very, very wealthy clients. Had almost $1 billion assets under management, and he's someone for me that I talk to very often, and he's the opposite of emotional. And last night, when we were sitting, every Friday we go sailing. James is a small sailing boat, two of them, and there's a group of us that go sailing when I'm in Sydney. And we always get dinner afterwards. We were sitting in the rain last night eating a burger, and we were chatting about the markets, and obviously they're very involved in sort of share markets, traditional markets. And they were talking about a particular company, and I think it was James who said, Nick said, no, there was another guy that I won't name him. He was talking about a company, and he said, the price is in the shitter, everyone's hating it, and it's not going well. I can't remember. There's two phrases he used. It's something about price, in the toilet, and everyone's hating the perspective, or whatever. And James and Nick both looked at him and said, "Cool, let's buy it." And I said to them both, I was like, "What do you mean? Like, the price is in the toilet. It's not going well. Why?" and they both looked at me and they're like, "It's just emotion. The people are just emotional. It's just emotional, right? Like, logic will eventually overcome emotion, always."
Yeah.
And I'm going there, but you need emotion to get back to where you were. And they're like, "Yeah, but it takes time." And they both looked at me like, "That's what we buy. We buy prices, companies that are in the toilet, and the optics are terrible, because the optics will eventually get better, and the emotion will go away, and the price will go back up. Reasonably speaking, not always." And so that happened last night at dinner. That's a small rationale of this market. We go through peak crazy cycles, incredible volume. People are making double their money, triple their money, quadruple their money, 10x, 15x. It's nuts. It's nuts. Anyone who is in traditional markets, it's insanity. It's just insane. It's insane. Okay. So, in traditional world, you make 30% on a year, you're absolutely over the moon. So, so when it comes to this market, we're obviously in a phase where there's not a lot of volume. Okay, and there's a few factors for why that probably came about. One of them is always, liquidity issues, as well as how the last couple of months has evolved. Now, people get bruised in terms of their confidence, and things that bruise confidence in a highly speculative, volatile market are things like Pixelmon, right?
Oh yeah. I don't even want to talk about that.
Like, you get bruised. You get
Mhm.
bruised. Like,
Yeah.
that happens, your trust goes out the window. You go, oh my God, like, what is happening? You know, this isn't good, especially if you got involved in that. If you got involved in that and you saw that artwork, you're done for a while. You know, you're tapping out. You're like, I'm just
Yep.
taking a breather. This is not good. And so there's a lot of sort of issues like that happens, and people sort of have an understanding that, you know, that's not quite good, and that sucks money out of the market, and it bruises people's confidence and stuff like that. Now, since I got involved last year, I've seen, for instance, using my ape as a benchmark, I saw it go from 2 to 5, and then to 3, and then to 10, and then to 4, and then to 12, and then to 6, and then, you know, like, it goes up and down. It takes time. And there was times where I watched it, it hit, I think it hit 50, and I was over the moon. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And then it dropped to like 30, and people going, oh no, it's over, it's done, you know, it was a good run. We're all, you know, look, listen, the market isn't going anywhere. Okay, it's too established now. Like, it's very established. NFTs aren't going anywhere. The rate of institutional adoption, and most importantly, large company adoption, is through the roof. It is faster than crypto as a whole. Okay, how, like, you know, crypto obviously has bull and bear markets, and they're much longer cycles, but we have never seen these big companies, organizations, football clubs talking about buying metaverse land, putting patents in for this and that, talking about NFTs. We've never seen that. Ever. Ever. So
Yeah.
you would be uncomfortable to say, the market's dead, we're screwed, da, da, da. You know, like, it's dramatic, it's emotional. And the problem is that a lot of the people involved in the NFT market are spending money that they can't afford to lose.
Mm.
That's the problem. Like, when I bought my ape, and I think it was like 6,000 Australian dollars, and, you know, I was happy to lose that. Like, I wouldn't have been happy, but I wouldn't be on the ground in a ball crying. You know, like, it's not my food money. So then my perspective was, if it goes well, great. If it doesn't, that's life. The problem is that a lot of people are putting in money that they can't afford to lose. And that's when you see floors dropping and people panic. People panic. And that is the nature of a inexperienced speculative market. And realistically, that's when a lot of the, you know, the quote unquote pitchforks come out as well, right? Like, people see prices dropping and they go, why aren't you guys doing this? 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 Right? And that's when the prices drop. And it's also when the prices of every collection drops. Every community starts asking these sort of questions, or little cracks start showing. Because when it's going up, there's absolute confidence. They're like, you just keep doing it. I don't care what you're doing. It's working. Keep doing it, right? When a lot of the reason that this is happening is because it's a market. It's a market. Like, you know, we're putting out announcements, we're doing things, but that's probably 70%, you know, it's probably 60%
Yeah.
of the reason why it moves. 40% is completely out of our control. It's
Right.
just the market.
For sure.
There's money in the market. People going in, finding projects like that, I'm buying. Like, that's just how it works. So when there's a slowdown, that's when people start panicking, especially the people that have money in there that they don't want to lose, or they really care about. Okay, and that's when people get emotional. That's when people go, I need to get out, I need to get out. And they list,
Yep.
and then other people list, and then they list below. And, you know, this isn't an instant liquidity market. You don't submit a buy or sell order and it instantly fills. There has to be a buyer. So that's where we see that happen. And then you start seeing people, you know, start making critiques. And that was interesting today, because I woke up at 4 a.m. normally, like I do. I sleep like a baby. I wake up every 2 hours. And I saw some messages, and there was someone who was saying that in a community spaces there was a concern about, and everyone's concern is completely valid. There was a concern about me not being as vocal in the community from a one-on-one perspective. Like, for instance, there's community spaces that happens for PA all the time, and it's incredible to watch. It's fantastic. And some people were saying, we want him in here. We want to talk to him. We want to ask him what's going on. We want to offer the suggestions. We want to help. And a lot of people, when there's a slowdown and prices start dropping, they go, we want to help. We want to understand, where are we going? These sort of questions. And a lot of this is, there's a portion of it that's absolutely valid, and these people have concerns or they have questions or queries. But there's also a lot of people that are doing it simply because they're worried. Right? They're worried. What's going on? Prices are dropping. Volume's dropping. What do I do? What are these people doing? What are they working on? I want to hear them. I want to talk to them. I want to ask them questions. And so it's a very interesting perspective, because when I spelt out on my tweet this morning, I said, look, I can spend more time doing AMAs, doing talks, talking to the community, getting in the community spaces, and having conversations one-on-one directly with people. But the problem with that is it takes away valuable time. Like, we work 18 hours a day. Okay?
Yeah.
We've got James and Nick, they help, and we talk to them all the time, but James is also running a publicly listed NASDAQ company, right? Like, he's got responsibilities. So does Nick, right? So we're all busy and we're all working. We're all doing things, and Josh, our artist, is 24/7 on stuff that we've got upcoming. The agency is working. Like, we've got all these people doing their jobs. And realistically, what we don't need is too much time coming into AMA spaces, because I have an understanding of where everyone's heads are. I spend 3 to 4 hours a day on Twitter. I read everyone's comments. I sit in Discord. I read. I know where everyone's at. I know where the concerns are. I know exactly what's happening. Right? So if I jump into an AMA and I hear the same concerns that I'm already aware about, and then I address them, it's just, to be frank, like, it's actually wasting time.
Yeah.
Because then maybe an hour or two that have gone, but it also takes up a lot of energy, right? Like, it's actually, people think that jumping on here and sort of having a conversation is easy. It takes up some energy. You've really got to think, you've got to concentrate, right? So like, it makes me, there's a little bit of energy gone, and it sort of it distracts from the day a little bit, right? So if I didn't have a good understanding of the community, then I need to spend more time understanding who it is, and sort of sitting in the community spaces and hearing people out, and that will be my job. If I don't have an understanding of our community, we lose. We lose. But if I have an incredible understanding of the community, and I talk to everyone, and I hold some hands, okay, for some people that are a bit nervous about what's happening and where we're going, that'll make them feel better, and that will make them more secure. However, it won't help the project.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not working, the project's not working. Like, everyone's working in the background, but I'm pulling all the strings.
Right.
So it's a balance. It's a really delicate balance, because people have discussions in Discord and discussions on Twitter about things that they're concerned about. And of course, not everyone's going to be 100% happy, and everyone's going to have different opinions, right? That's the nature of individuals. But my job is to make sure that I hear about all of those, and I listen to them, and then I activate those things or address those concerns as they need to be addressed. So when there's a bit of a market slowdown, a lot of these questions and queries come out. So there's specific times where I will address things. And this morning, I felt the need to sort of say something about that, because if people in a community spaces are starting to get, verbally nervous because they haven't sort of heard from me, or they haven't spoken to me one-on-one, that's a bit of a concern. That's a concern, for sure it is. And sometimes people just need a little bit of a reminder that if we're quiet, we're working. You know, we're working on the next week. We're working on the next 2 weeks. We're working on C3. We're working on that experience. We're working on Divine Entities. We're working on Vox. We're working on merch. Like, we're working on events. It's a lot, and it's great, and I love it. But there's obviously a balance, and some people need to understand that balance. But generally speaking, it's a lot of the people that have got a lot of skin in the game that get worried, and that's very fair. It's incredibly fair. But we have to reinforce and sort of assure them that we're here and we're working. But having said that, if I come out with some, crappy announcement, it's not going to move the price. Nothing's moving the price. Right? The only thing moving the price right now is just random general sentiment of people jumping in and buying and selling, and like that's just normal. So there's also timings. You don't really want to announce anything big during a slowdown.
Yeah.
Like, you just don't.
Yeah.
Like, you really, really do not want to do that, because people then go, okay, cool, but I'm a bit wary of NFTs at the moment, so I'm not going to dive in.
Right.
But
It's
it sounds
kind of
cool, though.
waste. Yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
it's
I
a bit counterproductive.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
So
think people don't understand that really, because during slow times they want you to push like, hey, what's coming up next? Like, what's happening next with the project? Like, they start worrying, which is obviously like people have concerns because like floor price they've invested and stuff, but they don't realize that when volume is low, like how low it is right now, pushing out some of these announcements may
Go to
not be
waste.
for the
Yeah.
may not be for the best interest of the project, like long term. Like, if you wait for those announcements a little bit during when volume is higher, like it'll have much better like dividends paid off, which
Yep.
I feel like a lot of people don't understand right now in the space.
for sure. And again, it comes down to the type of people that are in the space. And a lot of the people are very new to this sort of environment. So we are all new to it to a degree, right?
Yeah. It's
And
very new.
yeah, and so the other thing is, and this is a bit simple and a bit brutal, in the sense that you want to put into a team. You want to believe in a team, get behind a team, because they have experience in doing things and executing on things. That's why a lot of people get into certain projects, because the team knows what they're doing. It's very counterproductive to then try and tell the team what to do, because that's what they're for. That's their job.
Yeah.
So
No,
like
I mean,
we'll always listen to feedback. I'll always listen to everyone's feedback. I read 4 hours a day. I read on Twitter and Discord and listen to everyone. But at the end of the day, we got here because as a team, we operated and we delivered and we got here. That was our hard work that got us here, right? It was our work that got this community together. And then it's a lot of the community's work keeping it together. Absolutely. And without a community, you have nothing.
right.
But it's also our expertise to build.
Right.
So we need to do that.
I think like a lot of, just because, you're silent doesn't mean that you're building. It could mean that you have your head like, just constantly building and, like you said, some people may be worried about that, but it's impossible for you, at such a high level to kind of go in the Discord and like reassure everyone individually. Like, you just don't have the time for that. Like, I'm sure like you're like 10 times as busy as I am, and like I get bombarded with so many messages a day, and like I don't even have time to do that. And I'm sure like your amount of work is like tenfold that. So
Yeah, I think, as a project founder, you have to wear a lot of different hats. And you have to understand and you have to be sympathetic to how people feel.
right.
And that's something that I've always tried to do throughout my entire life. I've tried to really try and put myself in other people's shoes. And which is why when I tweeted out this morning, like, I can understand where people's heads are at. I get it. They're unsure what's happening with the market, what's happening with the volume. It's low. We haven't heard anything. What's going on. And realistically, it's really based on mistrust.
Yeah.
That's what it's based on. Because, all right, because, and coming from, I know many CEOs of listed companies, and I can tell you right now, no one's asking them what they're doing on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
No one asks them. No one asks James. They're like, "What are you doing today, James?" Like, no one asks him, right? The reason why in NFTs people are asked rather, is that there's this level of trust that is so shaky in the NFT space. So shaky. And if you don't hear anything, you don't see anything, there's an instant feeling that they're like, hang on, is this person doing nothing? Like, because you could, let's be completely realistic.
Yeah.
You could stop working, you could just stop
Yeah.
working and put out every little, announcement here, announcement there. Go, you team do this, team do that. And you could just do nothing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then just slowly dies an organic death.
Mm-hmm.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
That's the reality. So that's why people go, what's happening? They're quiet. Are they doing something? Are they working? How do we know that they're working 18 hours a day? Because we don't know.
Yeah. No.
So there's this level of trust, right? And the people that ask those sort of questions, like what's happening? Can we have an 8A? Can you jump on here? Can you jump on there? A lot of it, and they won't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
They won't, and they won't admit it either. Like, this is human psychology. People don't admit things like this. But the real reason, it stems from a level of mistrust.
Mm-hmm.
Do I trust this person to be actually working really hard on this, especially when the market slows down? Because if they're worried that the market might collapse and go into a bear for 3 years, of course they're worried that if the project founder's thinking the same thing and going, oh, I might start working on something else now, like this looks a bit sketch. So there's this, it comes from a level of emotional uncertainty about the market, and then it's reinforced by this distrust in this space of going, are these people actually working? Are they actually doing this? Are they actually still doing it? So it's understandable, and it's something that I can sympathize with, and it's also something that I experienced. Remember, I flipped NFTs for 6-7 months before I ever made it on my own project, right? Like, I did this. I did it. And there was times where things were slow, and I remember being in the World of Women server being like, hey, maybe we should do this. Like, I was there. I did it. I understand it. But now, from the perspective that I'm in, like, I understand the other side. And that's why I'll try and tell people, like, I'll try and call it a spade, fuck a shovel. Like, I'll tell you what most people are thinking and why. And then when the market picks up again, everything's fine. It's all good. Everyone's interested. We're making money. Announcements coming out. Like, it's all good. So it's an interesting contrast. Interesting contrast.
I think that your community. I'm sorry, dog barking, but I think the community is like, trust you because you're so transparent on Twitter and like host so many spaces. So I mean that's good. But
Yeah, like,
oh, go ahead.
You're right. Go on.
Oh, so I was just saying, like, we're like 9 minutes over. I know you're super busy, so.
Oh no, that's right. I've got time. I haven't got any specific plans right now, so
Oh,
we can
okay.
talk. All good.
Oh, perfect. So I was like wanting to touch on. I know we talked about it a little bit about mental illnesses and how you and your friends suffer from depression, and how you wanted to tie psychedelics anonymous with psilocybin research. I was wondering like how it's tied in more in depth.
Yeah. So there's a few different elements here, and it's relatively complicated. From a legal standpoint, we've got to be careful with some things that we do. Few aspects. First of all, we're in the process of researching a few private entities in Australia and overseas that are working on the production of a synthetic psilocybin. right? As a treatment for anxiety, depression, PTSD, headaches, all these different things. And what we're trying to do is, which we will do, is get into one of these companies, and we'll actually invest in like a Series A or a Seed or a Series B. And what we'll be able to do there is actually help push a company forward to actually get to a place where they can make a difference from a supply perspective, from a pharmaceutical perspective. That's the first thing. Second thing is, we support and have a partnership with Mind Medicine Australia. We did a Spaces the other day with Professor David Nutt, who is a professor of a word that is so long I can't pronounce it. And this was one of the workshops that we're going to end up doing quite regularly, which is about psychedelics, what they are, how they help people, talking about treatment, how that is, and sort of really just doing education. Because a lot of this stuff is regulatory struggles, right? It's not medical struggles in terms of what actually happens. It's regulatory. So for the same reason it took cannabis a long time to get through and get passed and sort of be widely used, it's a similar thing for psychedelics. Right? And so for us to spread educational awareness around psychedelics and actually educate people, okay, like how many people, a lot of people just who especially haven't done psychedelics, sort of pair this notion of, if you take psychedelics, you're going to have this amazing trip with all these lights and colors and da-da-da, it's going to be so happy and fun and whatever, right? It's not the case. It's not the case. Like you actually will revisit a lot of things that you tucked away. And it's a confronting experience, and that's why it pushes people forward. And that's straight from Professor David. Like, you know, that's how he describes it. He runs a clinic where they do this for people who have treatment-resistant depression, and so it's actually a really hard experience. And there's all these sort of misconceptions around that, and also a lot of people confusing different types of sort of compounds like LSD and psilocybin and, you know, ayahuasca and all these different things. So the second part really is to make sure that we want to spread awareness around psychedelics. We want to tell people what they are, right? And that's really, really important, because a lot of people have these misconceptions based on what they know. So that's the second element. The third element is, from a mental health perspective, we're working to build that infrastructure to have people receive some form of support that hold our NFTs. We're hiring, and in the process of hiring, some support workers who can have conversations with people about anything like life related. You know, these people aren't, we'll probably have eventually some psychologists, but, you know, these people aren't psychiatrists. They're not prescribing drugs. There will always be other avenues and sort of links to services in people's different locations and geographical locations if they seriously need help, which a support worker will tell them if they do, because we can't provide that from a medical standpoint. But we can provide sometimes just someone to talk to. And there's charities in Australia like Lifeline and like Beyond Blue that have, you know, 24/7 text channels. We can text them. You can text the number, and you can text them what you're struggling with, you know, what's going on. Like, if you need someone to talk to, because sometimes you need someone to talk to, and it can't be a friend because you don't want to be judged, and it can't be a parent because you don't want to get advice. You know, you want someone to listen to. You don't want advice per se. And we all know parents are very quick to hit you with advice because all they want to do is help you. You know, bless them. So these services that are modeled off just providing an ear to listen to, someone to listen to. And that's what we want to do. We want to do that in a Web3 capacity. What we want to do down the line is build essentially a mental health area, clinic, center, whatever you want to call it, in the metaverse, right? Like, this is a little bit further down in our roadmap. We want to have a place where people can come. We want to have a place where people can sit in groups and have sessions around, you know, alcohol or drugs or whatever it may be, and being led by counselors or people that are specifically very experienced in what it is that they're talking about. So if we have three real sort of aspects here, which is the research side, where we invest in a company looking to create more accessible avenues to these drugs or synthetic compounds. Then we have an education standpoint where we talk to professors and council workers and people about mental health and try and spread this awareness and spread this sort of education of what these things are and the facts. Because there's so many people that spread an opinion, and most of the time the opinions really aren't educated, which is why we'll get professionals. Like Professor David Nutt is quite literally one of the most experienced people in the world when it comes to psychedelics and psychedelic treatments and psychedelic therapies. The other side of that is then obviously with My Medicine, we'll be able to provide courses. So they provide courses to train people on psychedelics. They actually provide these courses, what it's like, how to do it, what people are going to experience. It's like an educational workshop, and they charge for that. So eventually what we'll be able to do is host these workshops just for PA holders, and we'll pay for it, right? Like, there might be 100 people that want to actually do a course on psychedelics. We'll pay for it. People can opt in. It'll be a first come, first serve basis. And that stems from sort of the education side of things. And then obviously the third and last pillar of the mental health stuff for Psychedelics Anonymous is getting these council workers and actually building some infrastructure for people to actually have someone to talk to when they need it. And then we can branch out from there. Like, I'd love to get some life coaches, love to get some business coaches. It's the same infrastructure, it's different, just a different practice. But realistically, spreading awareness is the most important thing. People are so scared about talking about mental health. They're so scared about opening up about their mental health. And everyone's on a different path and everyone's at a different place, which is totally fine. That's for everyone's prerogative to talk what they talk about. But sometimes all they need is one person to start talking about it. For the other person that's really close to being happy to open up, and then someone else opens up, and it's just like a domino effect. So that's why, first and foremost, we just want to talk about these things. And for Psychedelics Anonymous holders, for our Discord, for the people in our community, they know that this is something that anyone who's a holder of PA will react to. If someone opens up and they actually start thinking about their health and their mental health or their physical health, people here will go, yep, happy for you, lend a hand if possible, give any sort of hint of advice of where to go to the gym or what running track's good or what music to listen to when they want to go out and sort of get some fresh air, whatever it may be. People are here to accept that. And the point and the difference is that a lot of projects will talk about mental health. They'll go, we have a mental health channel on Discord. We donate a little bit of money here or there. But it's not built into the culture. It's not. So these project founders, they don't talk about their mental health experiences. It's not top down. It's completely like, here's what we're doing for mental health, and then we sideline that and move on. So if we're able to talk about it, and I'm able to talk about it, and other people are able to talk about it, then we build a culture around it. And that's really important.
Yeah, for sure. The mental health aspect of PA really was really what I was interested in when I first heard about PA, especially how open you were about your own mental health. I feel like that's great for your community and the NFT community in general. Like, I feel like that's something that definitely does need to be discussed more, especially in the NFT community as well. Something else you did touch on, however, was the metaverse. And I know PA has their own metaverse pass as well, which is really interesting because I think the next like frontier of NFTs will be play to earn and metaverse plays. So I know originally when I was looking into PA at that time, a lot of metaverse projects were launching, and like in their roadmap they had, we're gonna make our own metaverse, we're gonna do this, and then I remember I was in one of your spaces and you said that's not really feasible. The metaverse play would be to be in the metaverse that most people use. So if you want to just touch on your metaverse passes a bit and your opinions on the metaverse in general.
For sure. So the metaverse pass really represents a access token to metaverse or virtual related PA events. So a lot of people might assume that PA related events are get-togethers of individuals. It's not always correct. The metaverse pass represents a way forward into an experience. If you think about a card, like a pass, the way it's designed, it looks like an access token. It looks like you're going to swipe it somewhere or insert it somewhere and get somewhere or do something. So the Metaverse Pass as a whole will obviously provide access to Metaverse events and a way for people to access things or integrate or participate in Metaverse events. It'll also give them some wearables. We're working on the wearables, making sure that they look really cool. And that's something that we'll work on over time because we want it to be right and everyone will get those.
For sure.
But the metaverse as a whole, and that's really where I'll leave it on Metaverse Pass. Like, look, the interest, utility, and value of that will probably come out over the next little while as it becomes more apparent what it's going to be used for. But from a baseline perspective, eventually, when we have Sandbox go into the new updates and we have lockable areas with passes and NFTs, that's obviously a really cool way to integrate metaverse passes. It will be an obvious play for us, but obviously that's over time. But I think people need to focus on the metaverse pass being a mechanism that you can get into virtual experiences. An experience isn't just a Decentraland bit of land. I think people need to think about that a little bit more. Yeah. We're all sort of conformed to thinking that metaverse means, or virtual metaverse or whatever, means that they have to be sort of in a Decentraland or Sandbox environment. It's not really. Virtual can be different things, different ways.
Right.
So in terms of the metaverse as a whole, I think, that was the space where I shared probably one of my more unpopular opinions. Let's go back to decentralization for a second, right?
For sure.
So Sandbox, Decentraland, it's built on the premise of like this is a decentralized solution for metaverse experiences. It's decentralized this, decentralized that. Such a buzzword. But it means, in some way, shapes and forms, means so little. We all thought that the metaverse, the sort of MetaMask wallet and OpenSea were decentralized. We token those as decentralized platforms. They're not. They're using a decentralized system. They are not decentralized. There is a chain of command. There is a LLC. There is an entity somewhere that has to conform with specific rules, regulations, or guidance. And that's what people need to understand, especially if it's a product that goes so well. MetaMask is a ginormous ecosystem. The app is huge. Like, there's so many users. Okay, it's worth a ridiculous amount of money. That whole system. It's an incredible company. First of all, so it's using a decentralized system. There's some forms that are truly decentralized. Like if you lose your seed phrase and stuff, you're screwed. Like there's no one's coming to save you, right? Like, so that's in those forms it's decentralized. But we need to start talking about decentralization from an organizational standpoint and from an entity standpoint. Even the last last 7 days, to our knowledge at this point, we always thought that there were some countries that would never get involved in things, like Switzerland. And that was our thoughts. That was what we knew. That was what we knew at the time. And that's why a lot of, people go to Switzerland, put money there in Swiss bank accounts. We all have these notions, right? And they see them as independent and they're not going to conform to rules or side or whatever, and that in a form of sort of regulatory independence and decentralization to a degree, because they're not, centralized to a NATO or a body of countries. So even them, over the last 7 days, have essentially shown their cards of heading towards a specific direction. And that's really interesting. People need to pay attention to that, because even these ginormous economies that are based off the fact that they don't pick sides and they stay out of things and they won't do this and they won't do that, everyone has a point where they get pushed and they make a decision from that standpoint. So then if we think about some of the products or some of the services that are working, that we are using, it's a decentralized system that they're utilizing, and potentially there's some decentralized notions in there, like a MetaMask wallet. However, it's not truly decentralized. They will conform. So when people talk about Sandbox and Decentraland and it's decentralized metaverse systems and stuff like that, there's still an entity somewhere, and it's still big enough that someone could do or say, or regulatory bodies could push down and make changes. So a lot of the notion of Web3 is that we use these metaverse systems, and we're betting on these metaverse systems because they are truly decentralized, when realistically they're not. And then the other thought or opinion there is that a metaverse is by nature similar to a social media platform, where you have to have users to have value. If no one's using a metaverse platform, there's no value because there's no users. And it's based off user. Like, that's how it's social interaction in a virtual setting. So the metaverse that wins will be the one with all the users. The one with all the users will most likely be the one with the best tech. And the one with the best tech will probably have the best ease of access. It'll be easy to onboard, be easy to go and sort of log on and start using it. And for a lot of people, if you're using a MetaMask wallet to connect to a metaverse platform, and then you're going in there, like, a MetaMask wallet isn't easy to set up. I struggled last year to figure it out, and like, I'm pretty tech savvy. So a metaverse solution, the one that will win will be the one with the most users, and the one with the most users will be the one with the easiest barrier to entry. And it really goes back to our discussion before about Discord. There's so many steps to get in Discord, okay, and it's not simple. Okay, there are some steps. So who wins the metaverse platform race will be probably someone with a ginormous budget and therefore the best tech. Like, Sandbox is a fantastic platform, and they are heading in a fantastic direction. And Sandbox and Decentraland will be used for a long time. Like, we're seeing big companies buy land in there and so on and so forth. And that'll continue, but it may not be like that forever. It may not be like that forever. And if you're coming out as an NFT collection and you're essentially saying, we're going to build a metaverse solution, right? I salute the bravery, because it's hard. Some of these metaverse platforms, they're doing ICOs to raise an incredible amount of capital to then go and build a metaverse. So doing an NFT collection to sort of kickstart your metaverse sort of journey is difficult. Your funding, depending on obviously the setup, is significantly less. If it's a big ICO, a big ICO will never compete with a mint of a NFT. Will never. A lot of these big ICOs will be used to build the infrastructure, and then they may launch the NFT collection with all their land. I'm watching that unfold with someone I know who's doing one, and they're doing it in that direction. I think that makes sense. So the metaverse, I think, is inevitable, for the same reason esports were inevitable.
Yep.
It's easy to sit in your room, have a computer, use your 2 fingers, your eyeballs, and your other hand to submit a keyboard and move around. Like, it's easy, right? There's no barrier to entry. But if I said to all the people here that are listening, "Hey, do you want to come play some basketball with me?" A lot of them will be like, "No," and then a lot of them will be like, "Well, I'm in America, I'm in Europe, I'm in Africa, I'm in India, I'm in Asia." Like, so that's not going to work. So the metaverse will happen. It's going to be interesting to see who does it. I think NFT collections that are striving to be a metaverse solution, I think that's really interesting. I think NFT worlds is really interesting. They're obviously going really well. A lot of people are talking about them. I haven't personally looked into it that much because I'm concentrating on what we're doing, but it's interesting. It's curious, but I'd be very, very skeptical because a lot of NFT collections as a whole, even if they're building a brand or they're building a 10K PFP collection or they're building something, they're most likely going to go to zero, right? Like 95+% of NFT collections that launch are going to go to zero. So then if you say you're going to build the metaverse, it's going to be used by the general public or like a huge portion of society, even if it's Web3 people, that's taking your likelihood of going to zero up a higher notch. Same with games. I've seen, and I won't mention specifically, but there was an NFT project that was promising a game around about our time, and the trailer looked sick, and I saw it, and I was like,
The trailer
"That's
was
not
good.
gonna
The trailer
happen.
was good.
That's not
I know.
happen. Come on, stop
Yeah.
fucking with us. Like, that's not
Yeah.
gonna happen.
I know what you're talking
No
about.
way. Like, it's gonna take years for anything similar to happen like that." And we can all have a look at how that transpired. We can all have a look at how that happened. Some things have come out, but is it like the trailer? No.
No, definitely not. Yeah, that was they
So,
built a lot of hype with that one.
but that's the problem. Okay, people need to look at collections and look at what these plans are. If the plans seem crazy ambitious, it's actually a problem. It's not a positive. It's a negative because you read that and you go, how are these people going to do this? How are they going to build this? Okay, sure, they make $5-10 million.
Yeah.
You know how much it takes to build an actual game?
Yeah, so
Like, it's this unfortunate hype sort of cycle that people buy into, and a lot of people probably buy in understanding that they probably won't actually make it. A lot of people go into collections knowing that they probably actually won't make that game, but what they will do is understand that this project might pump and I might be able to sell and I might be able to make some money. So then it gathers heaps of steam, but at the end of the day, there's all these people that end up holding the bag at the end.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. So I think, people need to be really cautious of ambitious roadmaps. Our roadmap, as an example, it isn't really that ambitious. Like, it's not. Like, in the scheme of things, it's not. We want to provide support to the community members. Yeah, there's definitely some infrastructure and some hiring that needs to happen there. We've got a series of roadmap items that no one has a clue about that only we know about. We can handle all of those. A DAO, sure, there's heaps of research legalities that need to go behind that before actually doing that. But reality, you could pop up a DAO and create a DAO in 2 seconds. A token could be created in 2 seconds. But however, especially with the SEC and what they're talking about at the moment, there's no way we're jumping down that, okay? Because we have to balance risk and make sure we're not screwing the collection as a whole. But the roadmap isn't actually crazy ambitious. It's not.
Yeah. Well,
but saying that you're going to build a game or saying that you're going to create the next metaverse, mate, that's ambitious. You've got to have serious operators that know what they're doing. Serious operators. And same with, what I found really interesting, I'm really just generally chatting now, is that the what was the name of that collection that launched with the toys? this week. And there was some
Mm.
controversy around that. It was Anton? What was it called?
Antonym.
Antonym.
How do you say it?
Antonym.
Antonym. Yeah. So like that was really interesting. Personally, I think the art's really cool.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
think
I
the art
like it
looks
as well.
sick. Like I
Mhm.
really do. I really, really, really like the sneak peeks. Now, if the sneak peeks are exactly like the we all know pre-reveal and post-reveal, there's a thing, the artwork sometimes is a
Mhm.
bit shit or it's rushed or they show the
Yeah.
best ones or whatever. If the artwork is as good as they've said and it's diverse and everything like that, first of all, I think that artwork's really cool. Like I genuinely really do. However, I read some threads about it. There was some concerns around the actual promises that they were making around giving out the sort of the toys and the production and pairing the physical with the digital in some sort of way. And that's definitely ambitious. That's hard. That's really difficult. And so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But it's also a learning experience for everyone. That Dutch auction approach was really curious. What did you guys think of that? Any observations?
Both of us bought into the Dutch auction at 0.3 ETH, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah.
Dutch auctions are very it's a
Yeah,
touchy subject for
it
sure.
seems to be the death of NFT projects. Like there was I won't say the name of the project. There was a hyped 3D project that launched today that decided to do a Dutch auction before a whitelist, and
Mm,
barely any minted. So
Yeah.
really? Was that
Yeah.
today?
yeah, it was
Mhm.
today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
So, hmm.
they established so they released their whitelist. So there was a floor already that was, established, so like, the people that were participating in the Dutch auction kind of got a sense of like where to buy in at and whatnot. So I think
Mm.
that was fine. So
I think
Yeah, I
people
think.
saw the success of the Azuki Dutch auction, and then everyone
Yep.
just thought they could just do a Dutch auction right after, and it
Mm,
took a lot of liquidity from the market. And I think Dutch auctions are definitely not the way going forward. I think there'll be like a new
mhm.
whitelist mechanism very soon.
It
see,
seemed as greedy.
it's very interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of people say the liquidity leaves the market, and I think it's right to a degree.
Mhm.
But I think what's worse is the confidence. It's
Yeah.
confidence.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Confidence leaves the
100%.
market.
Yeah, it's
Like
all about emotion.
money leaves, sure, but you can recoup losses, da da da.
Yep.
But it's the confidence.
Right,
The
right.
confidence goes, and then people go, "Oh, I'm not doing that again," or "I'm taking a break," or
Yeah.
"Oh, I don't know. Like I thought I did my research and that went terribly. So what do we think's going to happen?" So
Yeah.
I think Dutch auctions are really interesting. I
Mhm.
think Azuki smashed it. Like they
Yeah,
obviously,
for
from an
sure.
art
Yeah.
perspective, they really fit a massively good niche,
Mhm.
and it worked really, really well for them.
Yep.
And that's incredible to see. It's always good to see these sort of incredible success stories. And so I think, you know, if you're an established collection, like if you've got a collection and it's had success and it's gone well, and I think a Dutch auction's acceptable then, but it's got to be non-complicated. Like there's none of this,
Yeah, yeah.
times by 1.2 situation. It's got to be like
Mhm.
the Dutch auction starts at this. The Dutch auction goes first, and then the whitelist people have their reserved mints, and they get to mint afterwards for this set price. Like that's an easy solution. Like it's an easy solution, and I think the timing of like whitelist first or Dutch auction first is obviously something that's curious. I think if
Right,
I was
right.
doing one, if I was doing one tomorrow, I would put the Dutch auction first with the public minters, and then I do the
Mhm.
whitelist afterwards.
How come that would be your strategy though? Because my reasoning would be you chose the people who got whitelist, right? Those are the people who believe the most in your project. So if you have them whitelist mint first, they would be able to establish a rough floor where if you do a public Dutch auction first, you might be getting most of the flippers and botters in who just want to make a quick buck, right? They might taint your floor and then your whitelist holders kind of get stuck right there, right?
So it's interesting because you got to come from two perspectives. Which perspective are we looking at? If we're looking at simply looking 100% out for the community and really pushing that metric, then yeah, whitelist first is the way, because then these people get in and then they get to set the floor, like you said, and there's probably this hype of the Dutch auction, and people probably panic buy some stuff because they think they won't be able to make the Dutch auction or whatever it is. But then if you go from the other perspective, you go, all right, we need this funding to do this thing. Then you just go Dutch auction first. Maybe say hypothetically you started at 2 ETH or something. And then there's all this hype, and then they all get bought for 2 ETH, and then your floor is automatically 2, and it might go up higher, like Azuki did, and then the whitelist people jump in after that and get to claim their mint or whatever. Like, so it's a different perspective. I don't think there's any perfect solution. So I'm curious, but it's really like, I don't think that 1 times 2 thing is probably a metric. Like, if your Dutch auction's higher than your OpenSea floor, you've really got an issue.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess like I hate to cut you guys off, but like we have about like 20 more minutes, so because the team has to have a meeting, and like we took 40 more minutes of your time,
Yeah,
of our
so
scheduled
good,
time.
so good, so
So
good.
yeah, we really appreciate you coming out. Like you've done so much for the community, and like this isn't obviously as big as like your Twitter Spaces. So the fact that you're here, you're like interacting with a smaller community, it really means a lot to us.
It's totally fun. Always here, always down to have a chat. I'm glad we made the scheduling work after a couple of
Yeah,
weeks.
yeah,
Yeah,
It's
for
a
sure.
couple of weeks, and yeah, but at the end of the day, like turned out fine. So yeah, I really
Yep.
appreciated our conversation. Really enjoy hearing you speak, and yeah,
No
really
problem,
thank you.
guys. Thanks for having me on. Well, everyone have a safe
For
rest of
sure.
your weekend, and
Thank,
I'm sure I'll see you in the Twitter
Yep,
sphere.
yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
Thank you,
yeah. Thank you
Psychedelics
so much.
Anonymous community, for
No
coming
worries.
out.
No worries, man. No worries. Thanks for having
Have
me.
a good day.
See you
Have a
guys.
great
Bye.
day, guys.
Yes, yeah.